Hey, welcome to the Huntsville Hustle podcast. We're going to share stories of grit, growth, greatness right here in the Huntsville area. We've got local small business owners. So today we got another one, great one, Dr. Hayley DeGraaff. She's the owner and medical director of Advanced Life Clinic right here in Huntsville. And she's leading the way in aesthetics and wellness and anti-aging treatments around town. And she's helping people look and feel better from the inside out. So Dr. Hayley, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
The honor is all mine for sure. So a lot of people may not know that your journey kind of started with completing a residency in family medicine. How did that lead to you opening your own Advanced Life Clinic?
So, family medicine was not my first choice. Due to a marriage and a move to Huntsville, it necessitated me changing residencies midstream. And there was no, and what I was originally going to be was an anesthesiologist. So, I was attracted to a procedural based, fast turnover type of practice. I think because of my ADD, it kind of suited my personality a little bit better. But due to the move here and the proximity, the distance to Birmingham to drive to commute to do an anesthesia and finish in an anesthesia residency, I switched to family practice. What is it, a means to an end, I guess, just to finish and get board certified. And then I said, I'll figure that out later, which is exactly what, I'll figure out what I'm really going to do later on.
That's it. Hey, I'm a ready, shoot, aim kind of person as well. That I'll figure it out. Just get started. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I just got to get finished. I just got to, get board certified where I can legally practice medicine, and then I'll figure out what to do about it later. So I had all the kids. I kind of did that through the children years, and then when my youngest, I had 3 children. When my youngest was a year old, I decided to make a bold leap and start the kind of practice that I really wanted to do, which was procedural based, focusing on aesthetics, wellness, weight loss, things that I was actually interested in. And so back then, 20 years ago, that was controversial. Most of the aesthetic world was dominated by plastic surgeons, things like that. So for a family practice doctor to get into that niche and do that was looked at somewhat, controversially, but here I am 20 years later, and I've just grown the practice and never looked back.
There you go. And people kind of come alongside. Oh, turns out she knows what she's talking about. So I think they're on your side now. That they kind of saw the vision. It's coming.
I guess after 20 years, if you don't know what you're talking about, you're probably in the wrong field.
Yeah, that's it. So how was that transition from kind of physician to small business owner? How did that transition go for you?
Well, as you can imagine, doctors are notoriously bad at business. And there's even monikers about the DDD, the dumb doctor deal, or the dumb doctor decision. So learning the business part of running a business was very difficult. And I made all the mistakes, all the things wrong, but corrected the ship enough early on. And some things I didn't correct early on, and we can talk about that in a minute. But it wasn't the easiest transition, I'll just be honest. You're not taught that in medical school at all.
Yeah. That's common in the fitness world too. I'm good at training. I'll start a business, but you know nothing about business. You get to go to the school of hard knocks real quick on that one. I know I did. Just look back at all those dollar signs that floated out of my business. Man, that was a tough one. But here we are today, right? We're still in it. But so when you look back, was there one kind of key decision that helped you set the tone for growing your clinic in those early years?
And I thought you sent me these questions ahead of time, and I saw what did you do early on that set the success. Fortunately, the things I did early on probably were not the things. It took me a while. I think the thing that took me the longest to figure out, and I wish I'd have done it way before, is to not work in your business so much, but work on your business. And I had doctors are control freaks. I had a very difficult time delegating what I legally can delegate. For example, laser hair removal. I need to supervise it, but I don't have to do it. And those first literally half of my 20 years of owning this practice, I felt like I had to do it all. I do all the laser procedures, all the injectables, and it really stifled our growth because there's only one of me. And I felt like I could do it better. I was the only one that could do it right. The only way I was going to do it like I wanted it done. And so when I finally made the decision to delegate the things that I can delegate, that's when the business really took off. But I held on to that mindset way longer than I should have. I mean, when you're first starting out a business, cash flow you kind of have to be the everything. But at some point, when the cash flow gets better, you have to make the decision to start delegating and work on the business and not just always in the business. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons. And I wish I'd have learned it sooner than I did.
It takes us all a while. I did the same thing, but it's a huge shift, and it opens and frees you up to really grow the business side.
Right.
But that's just man, because yeah, when you're in
And
it
the
all
other
day long, you can't do it.
Right. And the other thing is holding on to the wrong employee or the wrong, there's procedures that we brought into the clinic that just weren't a good fit. They might have been trendy and popular. They just didn't fit our clinic, but I held on. We tried to make it work, try to redo the pricing, try to change how we scheduled it, and it just wasn't working. And we just, you know, trying to make things fit a round peg in a square hole. Sometimes it's best in employees. You've got employees that just aren't a good fit for everybody. And so the quicker you realize that things aren't working, employees aren't working out, and shift away from that, the better you'll be in the long
run. That's absolutely true right there. So you mentioned trends right there and innovations that happen. That's happened pretty rapidly in your business. How do you keep up with all those, especially on the medicine and business side of healthcare?
So I do go to conferences. I do read, eyebrow medical journals, but honestly, aesthetics is very trendy. And a lot of the trends in aesthetics come from TikTok, Instagram, social media influencers that are injectors, laser, gurus. And for example, about 10 years ago, no, maybe 5 years ago, I kept getting phone calls about, do I do the Russian lip technique, which is a way of injecting lips to make them fuller. And I didn't know what medical term that was. I was like, there is no medical term, Russian lips. What is this? And it was coming from TikTok. So really, these trendy names for some of the procedures that we do that actually have more medical terms, if you're not following the trends on social media and TikTok, then you'll somewhat be a little out of the loop.
What goes on in a Russian lip? What happens there?
It's a type of injection that changes the shape of the lip more vertical than horizontal, and it got to be very popular 4 or 5 years ago, and it still is. Another thing is a laser that was very popular 10 years ago, and I did hundreds of them. It's called a fractional CO2 laser. Somewhere in there in the 6 to 8 years ago that it trended. I wasn't getting requests for it. I wasn't getting phone calls because there's always something new in aesthetic, a new machine, a new technology, a new filler, a new neurotoxin, which is what we call toxins to like Botox. And everybody wants the latest and the greatest. So I really kind of mothballed my fractional CO2 laser. And then once again, about 6 months to a year ago, my staff would come and say, I'm getting all these phone calls about CO2. I thought we're not doing that anymore. And so it's trending on TikTok right now. So we kind of brought it back out of the storage closet. I did it for 10 years, but we've gone back to doing a fractional CO2 laser quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, everything comes back around, right? In the
Yeah.
healthcare work. So kind of when you first started out, people really misunderstood what you were doing. So when you look back now, 20 years later, what is something people still misunderstand about what you do there?
I think the biggest misconception of everything we do here is frivolous and vain and not important in medicine. And I do feel like the people we serve, the patients we help with self-esteem, take unwanted facial hair in a female, for example, that can be very distressing, socially isolating. It could indicate, hormone problems. So yes, it's cosmetic, but helping a female battle and treat an unwanted facial hair issue related to something that's going on medically can be very rewarding, extremely rewarding for the patient and for me. So not everything we do is completely, like I said, vain and frivolous. A lot of my patients are in very transitional times in their lives. They're coming out of a divorce. Maybe they were caring for an elderly parent and they didn't get to do a lot for themselves for a while, or they just need a self-confidence boost. Maybe they're rejoining the workforce. They've been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and they really want to come back and do some things to make them feel more confident. So that side of what we do, I think it's not just making, big lips and no wrinkles. There's a very human side to how we look and how we present ourselves to people, and stereotypes and social stigma that for facial hair, back to that example. So helping people in that way can be very, very rewarding, just like helping somebody with their high blood pressure or their diabetes. It's I think that part of it gets lost.
Yeah, if it's important to somebody, then it's important to somebody, right? And you want to
Correct.
help them with that. And
Correct.
that's what you guys are known as, is kind of making people feel heard who are not heard in the other medical systems. That's kind of something you guys are known for, which is awesome. So how has that influenced the way you structure your consultations when someone comes in and your care plans? How does that work alongside with what you do in there?
The repeat that again. Sorry.
So how do you structure those consultations so you make people feel heard when they come in? How do you go about doing that?
So we have a sit down consultation, and I, try to. I'll always say, well, are we doing this for a reason? Is there something coming up, or you have a child getting married, or is there a big, kids graduating or something like that? So those are lighthearted ways, and then after you get to know patients, they'll start to open up about maybe things that they didn't tell you in an initial consultation. I'm going through a divorce, or I just recently got divorced, and I may be getting back into the dating world. And so those things come out later. So initial consultations are just trying to pinpoint, hey, do we have a wedding in 6 weeks that we've got to get this, get a few things done on a timeline. But the other things, the more personal things, tend to come out later on.
Yeah, there's something in the nutrition coaching world called the 5 whys, where you keep asking why, and eventually
Yes,
the true reason comes out, right? I'm sure
yes,
that's the same with you when
yes,
you're more comfortable. Here's the real reason we're doing this. So once you get down to that, people really feel seen and heard on that. So that's great that you do that. It's not just a intake form, fill us out, we'll get back. You actually have a conversation. I think that's valuable to people. So well, it's not just the people that come into your clinic. Your employees are also they feel seen and heard and cared about as well. How has your approach to leadership changed over the year? About you started in the very beginning, it was a little tough, right? But now, how has your leadership changed over the years?
I'm not a micromanaging, heavy-handed boss or manager. Obviously, through the years, as cash flow improved, I was able to hire an office manager, a practice administrator, an assistant office manager. And so I have delegated a lot of those day to day human resources and operational things to other people, but I'm still intimately involved with everything that goes on in the clinic. You can ask my kids, I've had pretty high expectations. And so I feel like I have a great team. Definitely framework the clinic as a family and a team atmosphere. We do a lot of team building activities outside of the office. So I think family, teamwork, cohesiveness is my main management style.
I think it
And
shows.
hiring the right people.
Yeah, it all starts with that. But I think it shows in your practice that when you take care of your people, they're going to take care of your clients, and it all just kind of keeps rolling together. So that's what you guys are
Correct.
known for. So I think that's a good reputation to have out there. So I mean, I get the sense about you that if you weren't doing what you're doing now, you'd still be helping people in some way. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
So my husband and and I haven't given him enough credit. By the way, I'm going to step back for just a second. Really, when he came on the scene about 5 years into my practice, he had a background in sales and operation, and he's really instrumental in the takeoff of the practice and teaching me when to let go, when to delegate, and all those kinds of things. And I brought him up to say that he and I have served on several boards, and they're usually medically related. Obviously, that's my background. So we've served on the American Cancer Society. We're currently on the state board for the Alzheimer's Association. So I feel like I would continue that, doing something capacity in the medical community, but more on a philanthropic side of it, I guess, and actually seeing patients. So we served on the cancer board to honor my mother, who's a breast cancer survivor. And we're serving on the Alzheimer's board to honor his parents, who both died of dementia. So I think we'll continue in that capacity to help in the medical community, but through organizations of that type.
It's awesome. Got to give back, right? You got to give back. So
Exactly.
you mentioned you've recently celebrated 20 years in business, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. Not many people
Mm-hmm.
make it that far. So how does
True.
how does where you are now compared to the vision you first had when you started 20 years ago? Does it match up at all?
It does. I think your vision as you get older becomes more of your legacy than how you're going to grow it, is how you're going to maintain it and what legacy you're going to leave to your employees. Because, we all have an expiration date and I won't be here forever. And so I think the last few years have been focused on the legacy of the clinic, keeping it going so that I don't just walk in and say, okay, I'm retiring. Everybody's out of a job. Everybody go home. It's been great knowing you. So I have I brought in a partner. Dr. Jennifer Scholes joined me about 2-3 years ago as my heir, to carry on the clinic when I'm gone. I didn't want to just turn out the lights and close the door when I retire. So I think that shifts from growing it to then maintaining it, and then, how you're going to pass it off someday. Don't have any kids that want to go into. My youngest daughter is actually in nursing school. I don't know if she'll be involved in aesthetics and all, but it's not like growing a family HVAC or a plumbing where your kid's gonna, take your, DeGraaff and Sons are gonna take over this plumbing practice. So it's a little bit harder to pass on a medical office if you don't have medical children. So, that transition plan is still evolving. You really start to think about how do you wind this down someday without just closing the doors and walking away.
Yeah, you got to look out for your people to keep it going, right?
Yeah, and I want to see the good the clinic does in the community. Like I said, helping others, providing, because we do medically supervised weight loss, we do hormone therapy. So I feel like we do a lot of good to help our patients, and I want to see that continue as well.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about helping people. So when you look at, success when you first started, where you are now, what does success look like for you right now?
I feel like success is the reputation of the clinic. I'm very proud of our 5-star reviews, patient satisfaction. More than the money, the monetary part of it is how are you perceived in the community? What do people rate you? How do they see the success of the clinic, the quality of the clinic? Our reputation, I guess, right now is more important because the money will follow. If you've got a 5-star rating, you do good work, you have good word of mouth, you're considered a quality, ethical, competent practitioner, then everything else will follow.
You are pretty successful. You have a great reputation in your clinic as well, so you're doing a great job on that. And there's,
I appreciate it. We work hard, and without that, you're nothing. So you have to work really hard to maintain positive patient. In the world of the internet, it can make or break you. So you better be doing everything you can to provide good quality medicine, and because your reviews unfortunately are out there.
yeah, and once
We're
they're out
bad.
there,
We do have a 5-star review on all the platforms, so we work really hard at that.
yeah, and it shows. And like you said, you have a great reputation. So I know you're talking about kind of the succession plan and all that, but I also know you have big plans. You're just a person who you are. That I know. What I know about you is you're still striving and trying new things. So what's next for the clinic?
I'm constantly looking at innovations, new lasers, new treatments. We just started a new to us. It's not as new to the industry, called PRF. It's using platelet-rich fibrin, which is from blood. It's like PRP, PRF, stem cell therapy. It's a regenerative medicine. We're really looking at a lot of regenerative things. Gen Z wants more natural. They want things that come from their own healing, from their own body. So we just brought that in and just trying to stay on top. And it takes, like I said, not just from social media, but going to conferences, going to meetings. My partner, Dr. Scholes, is going to a big meeting in Nashville next week, and we both can't go, but she's going to go to this one, and I'll go to one later on. But, bringing back what's the latest, what works, what doesn't work, and just continue to try to keep the practice relevant, keep it current, keep it growing, I guess.
Yeah. So where do we stand on Russian lips right now? Where are we at?
Lips are still very popular. Having lip enhancement is probably still, in the filler world, one of the number one procedures that I do. Very popular. I will say the trend in aesthetics, though, is towards a little bit more natural look. I think in the past 3 to 5 years, an overfilled, too much filler in the cheeks and a very distorted look. There's been a pendulum swing away from that. So although we still do a lot of filler, the shift is towards less filler, more regenerative, using your own stem cells, your own platelet-derived growth factors to sort of naturally build collagen, enhance, and slow down aging, versus just doing so much filler.
I'll make a note in my book on
Yes.
yeah. So I know people are listening right now, and they're probably checking out your ratings online. They see all these awesome things you're doing. So how do people follow you? How do they keep up with all you're doing?
So we have advancedlifeclinic.com is our website. We're on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at Advanced Life Clinic. And we post, I have a social media marketing person, a dedicated person. That was another thing. I tried to do all that early on. But Joe, when I started, we had the yellow pages. And so that has tremendously changed, but we're very up to date on our social media. We work hard on that as well, trying to get a lot of content, before and after photos, so people know what's going on here in the clinic almost on a daily basis.
There you go. We'll link all that in show notes. You can guys just go in there and click on it, whatever you're interested, the website or the social media. But hey, if you're not feeling seen and heard by your current doctor and you need some help with some things, and maybe then go check them out. Just go do that consultation, sit down with Dr. Hayley and her staff. I promise you're going to feel seen and heard, and they can help you however they will. Dr. Lee, thanks so much for coming on the show, and thank you. You're doing important work. I don't care what people say about it. If it's like I said, if it's important, if it's something that's worrying somebody and ruining their confidence in their life, then someone needs to help them, and that's where you fit in.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that about you and what you're doing. And like I said, great reputation in the community, helping people and helping communities and charities and everything around here. So everything's awesome about you guys doing it at Advanced Life Clinic. Appreciate you, and appreciate you guys listening. Please share this episode. Somebody needs to hear about Dr. Hayley and their staff and all the good work they're doing out there. Please share the show, share the episode. We'll see you next week on the Huntsville Hustle podcast.